We have a
Why?
public process for regulating vaccines. It's called the ACIP committee, and it's a public meeting. There will
You
be public
fired
comment
the
at that
committee.
meeting.
You fired the AS.
I fired people who had conflicts with the pharmaceutical industry.
Bobby has just been doing a consistently bang-up job with all of this. Here he is at a congressional hearing, and Representative Frank Pallone is going after him. And, well, take a look.
You have made a number of major decisions about vaccines, and again, there's been no public comment process or public accountability on that either. What are you afraid of? I mean, with regard to vaccines, are you just afraid of receiving public comments on proposals, or you just think these are fringe views that are contrary to the views of most scientists, and that the public comments will reflect this? You say you want transparency, but there's been no public process for any of this.
We have a
Why?
public process for regulating vaccines. It's called the ACIP committee, and it's a public meeting. There will
You
be public
fired
comment
the
at that
committee.
meeting.
You fired the AS.
I fired people who had conflicts with the pharmaceutical industry.
Oh, I mean, that's...
That industry, that committee has
there's
been a
been no-
template for medical malpractice
All right, look,
for 30 years.
I can't...
All right, we'll have a bit more on Frank Pallone in just a moment because Bobby was not done with him. But isn't it interesting the way they do everything? When you talk about the deep state or the swamp or the machine or whatever it is. So Frank Pallone, I don't know much about this guy, but here's Representative Frank Pallone, and he's very concerned that Bobby doesn't want transparency as it comes to vaccines. Now, I'm old enough to remember a thing called COVID. It was this sort of imaginary thing where you coughed a little bit and then they locked you in a room and you weren't allowed to go to your grandmother's funeral. Some of you may remember it. And you had to wear a mask when you were at a restaurant if you walked in, but then when you sat, suddenly the virus couldn't get below 5 feet. The whole thing was pretty wacky. But in any event, how were they when it came to skepticism or openness or asking the public about their feelings, say when you didn't want to be injected with their magical vaccine that wasn't a vaccine, or if you just wanted to, I don't know, take a walk in the sunshine without wearing a mask, et cetera, et cetera. So they don't care about any of these principles until they see that someone is coming in and fixing things, which is exactly what Bobby's doing. And now here is Bobby. He was clearly ready for this little back and forth with Pallone, explaining that maybe Pallone himself was on the dole.
If I can take a minute just to respond to something that Congressman Pallone said, and I'll address you, Congressman Pallone. 15 years ago, you and I met. You were at that time a champion for people who had suffered injuries from vaccines. You were very adamant about it. You were the leading member of Congress on that issue. Since then, you've accepted $2 million from pharmaceutical companies in contribution, more than any other member of this committee. And your enthusiasm for supporting the old ACIP committee, which was completely rife and pervasive with pharmaceutical conflicts, seems to be an outcome of those contributions.
Point of order. Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
point of order. Point of order.
The chair recognizes
Point of order. The
Dr.
gentleman is impugning the reputation of a member of Congress.
Well, sometimes it's worthy of impunation. I think that's a new word right there. But okay, so basically 15 years, and that's just, again, it's sort of the thing that Trump does. Like, you know, when Trump will be like, all these people hate me now and they used to ask me for money. It's the same exact thing. Like, it's like 15 years ago, dude, you were all about vaccine skepticism. Does your shift on this have anything to do with the $2 million? And you gotta love Pallone looking at his general counsel and the lady next to him, not even paying any attention, not even listening. But this is what they get away with, or I should say, what they have gotten away with for a long time, and the gravy train seems to be coming to an end.